But only one place to start, and that is with the big breaking news that Trent Alexander-Arnold has indeed been ruled out of the European Championships with that thigh injury that he suffered playing against Austria last night. So let's go back live and speak to our reporter Rob Dorset, who's been in and around the England squad for the last couple of days. Rob, I mean, we have to start with Trent Alexander-Arnold. What a huge blow for the young man.
A huge blow for the 22-year-old, but Pete, one glimmer of good news for if you're a Liverpool fan, and also a glimmer of hope, I suppose, for Trent Alexander-Arnold himself. I've confirmed in the last 10 minutes or so that it looks like he's only going to be out for between 4 and 6 weeks with that hamstring strain. Which is good news from a Liverpool perspective, because as long as it sticks to that timescale, yes, of course, he will miss the entire of the European Championships, but it should mean that he's back to play a part in the latter stages of Liverpool's pre-season and could be, potentially fit for the start of their next Premier League campaign. So that's a target that I'm sure Trent Alexander-Arnold will be looking towards now. But look, let's give him a bit of time to get over what is a huge disappointment for the young man. He was a part of the England squad that went to Russia for the World Cup in 2018 when he was just 19 years old, but he only played about 79 minutes of football in that tournament, and that was in the dead rubber in the final group game against Belgium. So from his perspective, he didn't really get much of an opportunity to show what he could do in that major tournament. England made 8 changes for that game, by the way, so he was very much part of the B squad back then, the fringe players, if you like. At this tournament, he would have, you expected, to be one of the mainstays, one of the key players that Gareth Southgate would have called upon as they try and win the trophy, and that has now been denied Trent Alexander-Arnold, and it's for Gareth Southgate to work out what he does next. Look, importantly, in that FA statement that we saw about half an hour ago, it said that Gareth Southgate will take stock. He'll get the final warm-up game against Romania on Sunday out of the way before he considers calling up a replacement for Trent Alexander-Arnold. So I think he'll let this news digest amongst the squad and the rest of us. He'll take some time with his rest of his coaching staff, Steve Holland in particular, who's very close to him, his assistant manager, before they decide who's going to come up into the squad of 26 in Trent Alexander-Arnold's place. And there is no rush either. We need to remind you of this. Because of coronavirus rules, UEFA have said that the squad of 26 that Southgate named on Tuesday can be amended because of injury at any time up to that nation's first game in the tournament. And England's first game is against Croatia on June the 12th. So 10 days today. It gives Southgate a bit of time to work out what he's going to do, doesn't it?
It does indeed, yeah. I mean, you're talking about a positive there for Liverpool fans that Trent could be back for the first game of the season, potentially in the Premier League. But I suppose another positive, if we were looking for them, is that if there was one position that he probably could afford to lose a player, I suppose it would be right back, because a lot of noise was around the fact that there were 4 right backs in the squad. Well, now there are 3.
Isn't it an irony that a few days ago, 2 days ago, Gareth Southgate named his squad of 26 with 4 right-backs in there, and it was Trent Alexander-Arnold who was the most controversial call-up, because we fully expected Reece James, Champions League winner, Kyle Walker, Premier League winner, and Kieran Trippier, winner of La Liga with Atletico Madrid this season. We fully expected all those 3 to be in. So it was Southgate who called up Trent Alexander-Arnold as a 4th right-back that got all the headlines. He was on all the back pages of the newspapers yesterday because of that news. Well, you can guarantee he's going to be on the back page of the newspapers tomorrow as well, because of this extraordinary and ironic news that he's now had to withdraw from the squad. From Southgate's perspective, I think you have to be aware that he'd planned for this possibility. And when I say that, you look at the standby list that he's got and the players who are on his standby list, and they have a goalkeeper in Aaron Ramsdale. They have Ben Godfrey, the Everton centre-back, who can also play right-back and left-back as well, by the way, for Everton. He's done that quite a few times this season. Ben White, who can play centre-back or holding midfield. You've got Jesse Lingard, wide midfield. James Ward-Prowse, central midfield. And Ollie Watkins, striker. So in Southgate's mind, that was deliberate. He had every single position covered. But what we haven't mentioned, and which is absolutely key to this, is the other injury concerns that Gareth Southgate has to key players. Harry Maguire missed the Europa League final with Manchester United last Wednesday, so 8 days ago, because of this ankle ligament problem that he's got. He's only joined up with the rest of the Manchester United contingent at Rockcliffe Hall in the northeast today. The FA tweeted pictures of that about an hour or so ago. So he's got to be assessed by England's medics. But how fit is he? How much will he be able to take part in training? Will he be ready in 10 days' time to start the European Championships against Croatia? And even more of a concern, I think, is Jordan Henderson, who hasn't played any football at all, any competitive football, since February the 20th, when he picked up that groin injury in the Merseyside derby. Yes, he's been training, but he was supposed to play last night in the warm-up game against Austria. But he felt some aggravation, a reaction in his groin, so he and Southgate decided to rest it still further. If he can't play any part in Sunday's game, the final warm-up game against Romania, you have to say there's real doubts about whether Jordan Henderson will be maintained in the squad of 26 players. So that's Trent Alexander-Arnold definitely out, Harry Maguire and Jordan Henderson with significant injury concerns resting over them. I think Southgate's got to take stock after Sunday, look at all of those players, find out who he's got to replace before he makes any final decisions.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to ask you, Rob, though, it's a tough decision. Who do you call up? You know, there was a lot of criticism that Gareth Southgate was keeping the players that hadn't made the 26 within the sort of group, but this has underlined exactly why he did that. But I mean, I'm looking online, people saying about Lingard, as you've mentioned, the two new guys that have come in and that can play the various positions. It's a really tough decision. Well, what's your gut feeling?
My gut feeling, as things stand, is that Ben Godfrey has a really strong chance, extraordinarily, of making England's final European Championship squad of 26. And if I'd mentioned that to you 10 days ago, you'd have thought I was absolutely nuts, wouldn't you? But the truth of the matter is that when he was named in the provisional squad of 33, it raised a few eyebrows. But Southgate was very honest and open and said, look, he had concerns about Harry Maguire's fitness, so he had to cover the possibility that Harry Maguire might not be fit for the Euros, so he had to have a centre-back in there. That's why he included Ben White in the squad as well, the Brighton centre-back. So you'd have to say maybe he's got a chance. But the advantage that Ben Godfrey has is that he's played at right-back quite a few times for Everton this season. 7 of his last 50 games for Everton have been at right-back. 13 of them, by the way, have been at left-back. So that shows just how versatile he is. So if Southgate wants to replace Trent Alexander-Arnold but still offer some more cover at centre-back, suddenly Ben Godfrey looks an incredibly good option. Ben White, I think, will also fancy his chances now as well, because he can cover Maguire at centre-back. And if Jordan Henderson doesn't quite make it, maybe he can cover in defensive midfield. I thought it was really significant that Gareth Southgate brought Ben White on for his England debut against Austria at the Riverside last night, not at centre-back, but in that defensive holding midfield role. He wanted to look at him. So look, let's look for the next round of clues. We know Southgate isn't going to make any changes or bring any replacements in until after the final warm-up game against Romania on Sunday. So look at who he picks in which positions. Look who comes off the bench in certain positions on then. That may give us some really good, clear indicators of what Gareth Southgate is thinking about who may replace Trent Alexander-Arnold, who is definitely out of the squad now, remember, we know, but who also he's considering might come into the squad of 26 if Jordan Henderson doesn't make it, if Harry Maguire doesn't make it.
It's going to be a nervy occasion watching that game on Sunday now, isn't it? Just hoping that there's no more injuries, Rob. Thanks so much for that. Well, Alexander-Arnold then ruled out, and that leaves those three there, Reece James, Kyle Walker and Kieran Trippier as Southgate's three strong right-back options. But as you can see there, Alexander-Arnold's attacking threat will be missed. He was way ahead of the others with regards to crosses, chances created and assists in the league last season. I've just seen a tweet here from Gary Lineker saying that he's the best attacking right-back in the world, and it's hard to argue with that, isn't it? His attacking stats are very impressive reading here. He scored or assisted 9 goals in the Premier League last season, more than any other defender. He created 7 chances, also more than any other defender. And 49 of those chances were created from open play, which again ranks him as number 1. When Gareth Southgate named his initial 33-man squad last week, he said that Alexander-Arnold could play in midfield at the Euros as well as a wing-back or a right-back.
People feel I have an obsession with right-backs. I just see 4 good footballers. Trippier can play right-back or left-back. Trent can play right back, wing back. I think he can play in midfield. In the last few days, I've seen Reece James play right of a 3 at wing back in the middle of midfield. We're going to a tournament, and those sorts of flexible players that can fulfil different roles but are good footballers are going to be hugely important to us.